What's up, everybody? You're back in here with the Pro Football Pod. You've got the boys. We've got Coach. I think he's down here on the screen. We've got Austin. Pretty sure he's right over here, maybe.
Nope.
Your boy Hulk. Listen, we're just rolling, doling. Hey, we've got the combine results. Everybody has performed up to this point except for the offensive linemen as we're recording this. No, hey,
they're going to bench a lot. All
I
right.
love watching the hog mollies run that 40. That's one of the best things for me. It's great.
I just love whenever they put them up against Rich Eisen and they all blow past him. That's the only part that I like.
It shows how they are just absolute elite athletes.
And nowadays,
we don't give them enough credit. It's amazing. But, we've got results for the quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, defensive backs, linebackers. We've got everything for you here. We're going to dive into it. Started off hot right off the top. Quarterbacks, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May. None of them threw. They're going to wait for their pro days. Which,
as expected.
These top guys, they went through it kind of today while discussing it on the combine. I mean, you had guys like Bryce Young, who he was there, but I don't believe he threw. And then you've got guys like CJ Stroud that do come out and throw, and then they show what they've got. So, I mean, it's kind of pick your poison. Nobody cares. It's not like it's really going to hurt their draft stock, so I'm not worried about it.
But it could have hurt them. Like, it's not going to help their draft stock if they were to have showed up to the combine, but it could have potentially dropped them down.
Now, for Jaden and Caleb, I don't think they have anything to worry about. I don't think Drake does either, as far as where, like, McCarthy and Penix go. But McCarthy and Penix, like, that's where I kind of want to start at. They both looked great today to me. They were dotting it up. They were throwing the right type of throws. If it needed touch, they were throwing it with touch. If it needed timing, they were throwing it with timing. And I always look at that as more of a benefit because they're out there throwing with guys that they've probably never thrown to in their entire life.
That's the biggest thing I just thought about whenever I was watching it. Like, they've never thrown to these guys. They don't know their speed or reaction time. It's so hard to throw to them. But, like, watching the quarterbacks throw and watching JJ throw, like, it really solidified it that he is him who I thought he was. And so moving forward, man, I'm boosting up my charts a little bit. Like, he's one of my top quarterbacks. He was before, but, like, still he performed just exactly the way I wanted him to.
I can't believe that none of these quarterbacks were really running the 40. Like, that there was only 3 of the whole draft class that even ran the 40.
JJ didn't run it. Because
none of them ran it. Like, it's.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's 4 of them, but, like, yeah, that's sad.
I don't understand.
Brady ran it. Like, how are these guys not running it?
I don't understand how you don't run it. Like, I'm Sam Hartman ran it, and that's all you needed to run it. Like, his flow and slow mo was elite. Like, you put him at the beginning of a movie, like any kind of war movie, riding into battle, like absolute, just 100%.
He's the new Jimmy Garoppolo, bro.
And the beard is on point. Like, that dude looks like he's 34 years old.
Now, they did do some of the measurables, though. So, like, we'll talk later about whenever we get to the receivers. Like Troy Franklin's size, he's not 6'3". He's barely 6'1". He's almost 6'2". But Bo Nix coming in at 6'2".
These colleges put down in their program.
Oh, it's so funny, dude. They just tip the scales a little bit. But 6'2", 214 for Bo Nix. Looked solid throwing the ball.
Bo looked good.
So did he got the best combine grade? He got an A+ or A, just a solid A. But he was on the top of the charts for the quarterbacks that performed based off of, like, the grade.
He looked good in the on-field drills too.
Yeah, I just would put JJ above him based off of everything. So, but the other guy I really liked was Milton, Joe Milton.
He's got a
rocket. Has a freaking cannon. And
if he can
he's tall too. He just stand there in the pocket and just throw it like Peyton Manning style, like, but just, and he can move.
6'5", 235 with a 10-foot broad jump. Like, that's
I can't believe he's so low on the like compared to all the quarterbacks. Like, he's like the 8th, 9th.
Yeah, I mean, I would put him there like right after Bo Nix, where Bo is like my 6th quarterback. Like I'd put Milton right there at 7, but Milton's a good development project for a team because he's obviously got the arm to be able to make any throw. It's just a matter of teaching him the touch and the accuracy to be able to do it. To where a lot of times watching him at Tennessee, he knew he had a strong arm. So he just relied on that a little too much. And then you've got plays to where it's a 10-yard out route and he's throwing it in the dirt. So, I mean, that's just a matter of, development and getting him with a good quarterback coach that can help his progression. So for me, he's a good development guy, but there's a lot of reasons as to why he is, ranked 7th, 8th overall as far as the quarterbacks go.
Now,
10th, really.
JJ McCarthy is the 5th ranked in the production score from like the Next Gen Stats breakdown of like their production in college. He was number 1 on quarterbacks for the athleticism score, and that might have been just because of like the drills that he did do was like the 3-cone and the 20-yard shuffle. So maybe he was willing to show off a little bit, but he was impressive in it. And that's one of the things Austin's been talking about a while, is about how scrappy he is, about how when the play breaks down, he's willing to use his legs to get the first. I think that he could be a starter, right? Like I think that he's going to get drafted in the top 15, like we were saying in the mock.
He's going to a team that needs him.
If he gets drafted by Denver or Vegas, he's starting day 1.
Or even Minnesota.
Or Vikings. Yep.
Yeah.
If Minnesota doesn't bring back Kirk, starting day 1.
I can't see those 3 teams passing.
Atlanta, if he gets drafted by Atlanta, starting day 1.
I still think Atlanta gets Justin Fields. I think that they're the easiest.
I've seen some videos coming out. It looks like he's really excited. Looks like he's ready to get back home.
Justin Fields. I want him to go back home. Like it just.
I saw something like the Bears want to do right by him. So.
Now, the other one was Michael Penix. Michael Penix really showed out with the arm talent. And, like, there was a question on, like, he had such elite tight ends, receivers. Everybody that he was throwing the ball to is going to be drafted in the first 2 days of the draft this year. So, like, was it part of a product of the system, or was it his abilities that made those guys who they were? And I really think that it was the latter. It seems like he's got a special arm talent, and I mean that's what you want to see from a 6'2" quarterback, is he's got to be able to work it with his arm.
Yeah, he's not very mobile, so his athleticism score doesn't really shock me.
He was ranked 8th
jiggy with
among
it
quarterbacks
when he needs to, though. Like when the play breaks down and you need a first down, he's not afraid to run. Like compared to like a guy like Tua, who's over under yards at like 3.5.
So it's funny that you say that, Austin, because Tua Tagovailoa is literally his NFL comparison.
Now I wonder how much of that though is the accuracy thing, and
I think that's what
lefties.
It is. Oh, they're both lefties. I hate that. Oh, come on.
That's easy.
That's easy.
That's just too easy.
Yeah, that's
because I don't see
saw
that,
and I was like, oh, come on now. So, all right, well, let's dive into some running backs here, some top guys. First guy, obviously, I want to talk about is Jalen Wright. We expected him to come in and have a great combine, and he ended up putting himself up there with the likes of Devon Achane, Keaton Mitchell, Jahmyr Gibbs. Like these dudes who we've seen over the last year, just all three of those guys last year's rookies.
Breece Hall,
you need to bump them up to like top 4.
That speed at 210 pounds is.
When we're talking like dynasty or fantasy, and you're talking about like Romeo Doomsday and Neighbors and Harrison, like. I think he's right under there. Like
I still think there's going to be like 6 or 7 wide receivers and Brock Bowers that are going to come off the board before a single running back. And
obviously,
I think the next guy we're going to talk about in Trey Benson is still my number 1 running back. Jonathan Brooks didn't do anything today, so we didn't get to like let him raise or lower on our boards. I like him a lot, but seeing the athleticism that these guys are pulling up at the size that they are and like the stockiness that they have.
I think that's why it's important for these guys to go out there and perform, because look how we feel about Xavier now.
Yeah.
But that's where you've also got other guys like Estime from Notre Dame. he ran a 4.7, like didn't really have that great of a combine. And then you've also got guys like Blake Corum, who
Yeah.
ran a 4.5, didn't have that great of a combine necessarily as far as the athleticism scores go.
Yeah, I thought
But
he would get a little
those are
bit
the type of guys to
moving
where
more.
you're going to the tape. And what
Yes.
Yeah.
Blake Corum has shown you on tape, I mean, 4.53 isn't necessarily like anything to sniff at. Like he's
No.
gonna be able to get it done, but at his size of 5'8", 205, you kind of wanted a little more burst. He's just more of that guy to where he's the short, quick,
Exactly.
juke you out of your jock strap real quick and gain the extra 4 or 5 yards.
Whenever they
Yeah.
were starting to do the running back 40s, at every position, they were saying like what the average top 10 at the position was doing last year. And for running backs, it was only a 4.48. So like he's right there. I mean, that amount of minuscule difference isn't something that I like count against him a whole lot. Now, not doing the broad jump
Play
and
speed
the three
and
cone.
play speed and track speed are very different. Like
Very
we'll
true.
get into that with Keon Mitchell
Yes.
whenever, or Keon
Coleman.
Coleman.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Whenever we get to the wide receivers, but yeah, go ahead with what you were saying.
I think that not doing the three cone and the 20-yard shuttle as a running back, being able to
Nobody did.
stop and go and like really get your agility out there, I think would have been a lot. Been able to help Blake Corum a lot
They
because that's
did
what he
talk
did well
about
last year.
But nobody
how
did it.
with nobody like doing the three cone, not many quarterbacks doing that stuff. A lot of these players are preferring to do it at their pro day where
Yes.
it's on their field that they're used to, they know what to expect. And we've seen how many ligament injuries on turf.
Yes.
You're not trying to go out there in the combine and pop an ACL on a three cone drill.
We had a defensive back pop a groin already doing the
Nate
40.
Nate Wiggins, yeah.
Yeah, which is, I mean,
Now
that's
he
so
blazed
sad.
the 40, ran the
Oh.
fastest 40 for any DB out there. But yeah, when you see the ice bag sitting on his hip for the rest of the day, that's kind of disappointing for him.
And to say he heard a pop, man, that sucks. Like his stock probably went down, even though he just ran an amazing 40-yard dash.
Now our stud, our guy, we got to talk about him, Braylon Allen.
Okay.
Now he didn't run the 40, which was very upsetting for me because I wanted to see that 40. Now I understand with him being 6'1", 235, if he goes out there and runs a 4.7 40, it's all
It
right.
hurts
This
him a
guy's
lot.
But
just a
we
bulldozer.
expect that from this
I
man.
do understand it. Like, so that's not as upsetting for me. His vertical jump being 32 inches, kind of expected a little more, and his broad jump being 9.9.
I think his broad jump being 9.9 is part of why he didn't run the 40. The broad jump really signifies what the 40 speed is going to be because it's that explosiveness. And the fact that he didn't even do 10 feet, I think it shows a lot of like where he's lacking on that. Now, 235 is big, dude. That's a big body guy.
He's huge. He's, like I said, he's Derrick Henry minus 3 inches. But another guy too, Isaac Guerendo, pretty sure how you pronounce it, from Louisville, ran the fastest 40 of the day, was first as far as his athleticism score goes for the day. 4.33 in the 40, 1.55 on the 10-yard split.
It was one of the running
That's
backs
elite.
that
Yes.
41.5 on the vertical.
On the vertical,
and
that's crazy.
A full foot further on the broad jump than Braylon Allen.
Yes.
That's a guy who absolutely helped himself in this draft, just going out there and showing that athleticism. Because I'm going to be honest, watched very little tape on this guy going into this process, but he was somebody that I wanted to watch going in because it was one of those like, all right, I've seen a little burst on film, but like, what's it look like when you're actually giving me numbers to it?
And he's the same size and speed as Breece Hall. Like 6 foot 221 at a 4.33 is faster than Breece Lightning. And on top of that, his comparison is Stephen Ridley. So Stephen Ridley was a banger. Like that's what he did. I really am excited about this guy.
Man, what a throwback, Stephen
Right?
Ridley.
the announcers were kind of disrespecting Isaac and like talking over him whenever he was performing. Like they were just chit chatting about some stuff. Well, like
They did it first.
Yeah, but once he got going, they realized they needed to respect him
When
a
they
little bit.
moved on to the on-field drills, they were shouting him out quite a bit because of what he put out there in the broad jump and stuff. And I remembered Daniel Jeremiah even catching himself a couple times and was like, I really didn't expect this kind of performance out of this guy. Like he helped himself a lot, which is what you love to see, and that's where we talked about in the preview.
Louisville's an interesting school to collect talent from. I mean, that's where Lamar Jackson came from.
They
I mean,
get a couple guys
speed.
every few seasons. They've got a couple studs over there, so they're doing something.
Now, if you're still watching the video, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. We're getting to the section that everybody has been waiting for. Now, we didn't get to see Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison. They weren't going to go up boards, even if they did exactly what everyone's expecting to do. And Malik Neighbors, at least, is going to have his pro day. So we're going to still get to see him, and we'll talk about him after that. But, guys.
Rome Odunze wasn't scared.
Nah, not at all,
Rome Odunze said, I'm going to go out, I'm going to compete, and he looked awesome.
Yes.
Like, for everything that you expected to see, he lived up to that. The 40 time, it was what you expected.
A little bit slower than I would have wanted by like millimeters of a second, like point.
But the gauntlet drill, when he ran the gauntlet drill across, it was the smoothest gauntlet of the entire day. He didn't break stride, caught everything smooth, tucked it in, moved on. Like his gauntlet was almost flawless to me. Like Rome Odunze for me, depending, on what info we may get out of the pro day at LSU, like he helped himself as far as possibly moving up
over Malik Neighbors.
Yeah. And that's nothing because of Neighbors. It's just one of those things to where Rome, by competing, helped himself.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it'll be a team need thing. If they need a quick slot guy or someone that's more of a route technician, then they're going to go with Malik. If they need a big body, a Michael Pittman clone, something like that, then they're going to go with Rome. I think that it really does depend on the team, that both of them are neck and neck, even more so now than they were before the combine, like you're saying, because of what Rome did. That's
my thing. If it was here, it is now here, and it's just going on preference. What were you going to say, Austin?
It's just hard to talk about him first whenever Xavier Worthy kind of like stole the show. I mean, with the 40 time, and he's performing off the charts with all the other categories. Like he was an
awesome.
Anomaly, bro. Like
the fact that he didn't have to run the second 40, and he did because
he took his shoes off.
His goal was to break John Ross's record.
Yep, which he freaking did.
He was like, if I'm only 0.3 away from tying him,
but then
I can
pull
beat
his
it.
fucking hammy. He
didn't even hurt himself.
Healthy after it. He was doing laps around the stadium.
And a 41-inch vertical at 5'11" with a 10'11".
10-11
That's
broad
Justin
jump.
Jefferson right there, bro.
Yes.
No, that dude 149 on his 10-yard split, like which he's one of those, like he's very small, 5'11", 165. Give him some NFL training. You're looking at maybe 185 if he can pack on 20 pounds of muscle.
Yep.
But that's like the max you're going to get for this guy. But I mean, if he can figure out, like get the route running down, which I've seen him run these whip routes and these zig routes on these short yardages. And dude, he leaves these cornerbacks just absolutely in the dust, and they just can't keep up with the quickness. Like, I don't want to say it, but like with some thickness, he could be Tyreek.
Tyreek Hill. That's all I'm thinking whenever I'm looking at his stats and everything.
But then again, when you look at these guys who are the top 10 guys in the 40 history, and all the wide receivers on that list, almost none of them have panned out to actually be like relevant wide receivers. So
agreed.
That's the one asterisk towards congrats.
Those guys weren't a prospect like him coming in though.
True. He is more of a route technician than any of those other guys were. So 100%. Like I'm absolutely
coming from a great school, like he's got everything behind him.
Now I only think that there was
the ball.
In my opinion, there was only one other player that rose up higher today than Brian Thomas Jr., and we'll talk about him next. But hot damn, did this guy show out. Malik Neighbors not competing at all helped him, I think, a lot because there's been this comparison between the two of them because they played together. But at 6'3", 209, third today in wide receiver rank for athleticism, 4.3 40 with a 1.5 split. Like, I think his vertical could have been a little bit more.
I did not expect him to run a 4.3.
No.
Like, I'm pretty sure in our preview episode, I spoke on Brian Thomas. You know, if he can run in the 4.4s, his draft stock is fine. And this dude comes out running a 4.3, which I did see some comps to DJ Shark for him. So him being that tall, slender body guy that's just a blazer down the field kind of adds up with what he showed out today. But yeah, he solidified himself as a first-round wide receiver for me today.
I saw a little bit of CeeDee Lamb in him.
Yes.
Tall build like that.
He was lightning. Like, legitimate lightning. And whenever he was, just like every drill that he did, he looked solid in. There was a couple of like small drops and like a couple missteps on the gauntlet maybe, but that was it. And that's life. Like, they're not all perfect. Now, the player that I thought raised themselves up even more just because they really weren't being talked about much is Adonai Mitchell from Texas. Like, obviously both Texas guys are really quick, but at 6'2", 205, like we said last week, it's the prototypical wide receiver. You want the 6'2" guy, and at a 4.3 40,
Buffalo is praying he falls to them.
Oh, I hope it doesn't happen so much.
How are
I
they
think
going
there's
for
going to be
another receiver?
Well, because they're letting Gabe Davis go. So they need a number 2. Gabe Davis is gone.
They have almost no cap
How is that
space.
like a automatic? Like, how do you know that?
Gabe Davis
letting him go.
has been
He pretty much
bitching on
tweeted
Twitter.
he pretty much tweeted
it's
it
one of
goodbye.
those.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
he's been talking. So he was basically saying that he's leaving Buffalo, and then right after showed this like big long stat list of like how he was top 5 in all these different categories, and the one that he was the lowest in was target rate. That everybody else that was like in the top 5 of these categories all had twice as many targets as
Kind
him.
of not wrong though.
He isn't, but
I
he
mean,
also
knowing Buffalo Bills and how they operate over there. Like, he's just like, they throw it to him 3 times a game, and he does what he can with it.
yeah.
Now, a couple other guys before we move on. Lad McConkey balled out, showed out. Like, I knew he was athletic, but I did not know he had those kind of wheels on him running a 4.39. So shout outs to him. Roman Wilson looked great. Malik Washington came out, looked great. Ricky Pearsall from Florida, he came out and looked great today. Keon Coleman's the guy I want to talk about, though.
Gauntlet.
Yeah, he ran. Yes, he did run a 4.6 40.
Yes.
So, that leaves a little to be desired at 6'3", 213,
He's a big
right?
boy though.
But in that gauntlet, his mile per hour on his top speed was the fastest among any other wide receivers. And that's what I was meaning when I say play speed versus track speed.
Yes.
Like, when you're just out there just running just to run, okay. But when you're actually having to go out there and you're making athletic moves or having to actually do something other than running, that if you're able to be faster in that to me, that helped him so much more than him just having the 40 on there.
And his hands, dude, he was catching everything. And that final gauntlet pass was behind him
last season.
He was running so fast that the final 2 throws were behind him because they couldn't anticipate where he was going to be. The kid, I think he's a first-round talent at wide receiver. I think we legitimately have 5, maybe 6, possibly 7 receivers going in the first round this year. And that's crazy.
Is look at this man. You can see that he's a motherfucking animal just on the field.
Like freaking dog.
I hate to go on that category of just looking at someone, but like, he has all of it inside of him. He's ready to just explode.
Guy, and we talked about this pre-show. This is the one and only guy for the rest of the draft season that we are allowed to compare to Deebo Samuel, and that's Xavier Leggett.
Yes,
6'1", 220 coming out of South Carolina, came out ended up running a 4.3940 with a 40-inch vertical and a 10.6 broad jump. Absolute freak of an athlete. At that size, putting up those numbers, just get the ball in this guy's hands. Like I was telling you, you know, prior in one of our last episodes, if you haven't watched it, go back and watch it. Click the bell. That way you get notifications when we drop an episode. But at that size, this dude would have been an elite running back at 6'1", 220 with those
with that speed
type of stuff. He's a 2,000-yard running back.
Yeah. If it wasn't for the running back position being on the downward side that it is, I think he would have come out as a running back.
If he was an inch or two taller, I would comp him to DK Metcalf.
And that's what a lot of people were talking about today with him is his athleticism score, how thick he looked out there. He's DK just minus 3 inches.
Yeah.
When you talk about football, like this is the receiver I'd want on my team. Like this is the build. Like how are you gonna fucking stop him? How are you gonna tackle that guy? Well, just get that ball in his hands. If he goes to a team that already has weapons, like that's just adding another piece. If you're talking about Buffalo, that's a guy I'd rather have.
You get him in the interviews, just find out that he's a dog, and you go ahead and pull the trigger on him in the second round. Like
you already know he's a dog.
First round type of athleticism score. But moving on to the tight ends, gonna obviously have to talk about the top guy, Brock Bowers.
He didn't show up today. He didn't perform because he's injured. But the pro day for him, I think, is going to be big. I mean, he was a little bit. It was like a hamstring. It's nothing serious, but he like pulled something at the end of the season. And
now the measurables that came out for him though: 6'3", 243, 32 and a 3/4 inch arm length, hands 9 3/4, little bit to be desired there. You kind of want 10-inch hands or so for, you know, especially
these
possession type wide receivers and tight ends. But
and he's from California, so
that comps up with Sam Laporta, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, like these receiving tight ends that we're seeing come out here soon. It's 6'3", 245 is pretty much the size you're looking at.
That boy.
I think I talked about it whenever we were doing our preview last week, that the person I thought could really help himself out a lot was Jatavian Sanders. Now, he didn't run as fast of a 40 as we would have liked, only a 4.69. He didn't do the vert and the broad jump, but whenever he was doing the catching drills, he looked to have a good like turn to be able to look back and catch the ball and like get back upfield. His play speed looked like it was where it needed to be. I still think that he's definitely a day 2 target. I don't think that he'll make it into day 3.
After breaking down and seeing the combine performances from these receivers, all the ones that we talked about, I would take ahead of Brock Bowers. Just
all of those receivers?
Talent. Yes.
Except for maybe Xavier Leggett is one that I might not. The size that Brock Bowers has and his fluidity, he's going to be such a phenomenal down the field receiver. Just watching his tape, like he is a very special type of player. I think that he'd probably be my 8th,
away from him, but
my 7th or 8th skill position guy.
Other great talent in this draft, and like people are just blowing him up the charts like crazy. Like,
now, one guy who did jump up the charts to me today was Theo Johnson from Penn State.
Yes.
Ran a 4.57 40, the second
at
fastest
6'6".
40 time for the tight ends at 6'6", 260.
Yes.
And not only that, but the dude also came in with 33-inch arms and 10 1/4-inch hands, just some mitts on him. 39.5-inch vertical, 10.5 on the broad jump. Like, freak of an athlete. And I don't know what they're feeding those dudes in Penn State, but between him and Chop Robinson, who we'll also get into when we go over to the defensive side, bro, athletes. Like Theo, I think he's a day 2 guy. I could see him being round 3 to somebody, but he's another guy who I absolutely think helped himself today.
Now, not as high up on the list, but Tip Riemann out of Illinois.
Yes.
Very fluid runner. 4.64 40, so pretty good for a 6'5", 270 guy. They were talking the whole time about how good of a blocker he is and like all the things that he was able to do. His production score is, I think, the only reason that he's so far down on the list on like the NFL.com list. But dude, 33-inch vertical could be better, but 10-foot broad jump, just across the board, especially in the receiving category, he looked very fluid with the ball. Not as much as Sam Laporta did last year, but like on that level where he looked a lot like a receiver. And if he can block on top of that, I mean, that's just a win-win.
And
It seems like he should be able to. He's a big boy, and coming out of Illinois, I mean, 271. That's pretty big.
Yeah.
that's a big
He
boy.
can hold his
That's
own
the main thing is that
against some
his
D-linemen.
size, running a 4.64, like showing that athleticism, that definitely helped him. And the highlight of the day, as far as the tight ends go, was Dallin Holker from Colorado State in the gauntlet drill, catching 2 balls.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh my god!
The second one, he kind of tipped it to himself.
Well,
that's
he
how that
already
drill
had
should
a
be
ball in
ran.
his hand because he thought he was either done with the drill or the last guy throwing he didn't look like he was gonna throw it. So he was ready to take off, then noticed he was throwing it, stuck it out, caught it with one hand, and then just kept going with both. To me,
There's nothing for these tight ends with these mitts like that.
That's a dog, though. He's just working all the way through the drill. Like, you love to see it.
Now, the one thing
he looked like Mark Andrews.
Of the tight ends that I did analyze, it seemed like every single one of them was catching everything that came their way. They have very sure hands. Even like when they were doing the goal line drill, where they're like going to the pylon and trying to make a high point catch, every single one of them looked solid. I think that this tight end class is being underappreciated a little bit, and they all helped their stock out quite a bit. In that, like, some of the day 3 guys probably became day 2 guys, and none of them are going to be day 1 except for Brock Bowers. I just don't see where there's enough of an athletic presence on any of them for them to have to be a first rounder.
Jatavian was the one to where I could see maybe squeaking in at the end of the first.
But he didn't do enough today.
But, yeah, to me, today kind of hurt him a little bit.
The Dolphins are looking to acquire a tight end, correct?
Likely,
But
it would be a day 2, though.
But I still wouldn't be shocked if they rolled with Durham Smythe for another
Exactly.
season.
Who would you guys be happy with if they picked one of these top like 5, 6 guys?
I'm looking at. I like
Theo.
Jatavian Sanders. I like Theo Johnson. I like Ben Sinnott from Kansas State. And
I like
Dallin Holker.
Tip Raymond, if
And
he
Tip
can be
Raymond
developed,
Yeah.
like drop maybe 25 pounds and like build out more of an athletic frame, he could absolutely be a I can't think of the 49ers guy right now. 49ers tight end is
George Kittle.
Yes. I think that he could be because of his blocking ability, like he could absolutely be a Kittle type where he's a versatile tight end. He's out on every play. He's kind of like an extra tackle on the edge, and then he also is able to receive the ball. Like I said, he looks so fluid catching the ball. That's what I want for my tight end. It's not about speed. We've seen from Pitts that speed doesn't contribute to the passing game as much as like being able to be in the right place at the right time and get your hands up on the ball.
Also having a coach that schemes you open and actually tries to get you the ball. But we're about to move on to the defensive side. If you're still here with us, again, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. Make sure to join Jersey giveaway at 500 subscribers. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your grandma.
We are 10% of the way there, so
Jersey of your choice.
Jersey of your choice. So defensive end or edge, as far as what it really is now. Dallas Turner, 4.46 on the 40, just absolute blazing out there. Looked great. Chop Robinson, he absolutely raised his draft stock to where to me, he was one of those guys that could maybe fall to the second. I don't think there's any way he does at this point now. Jared Verse, though, that's the guy I really want to talk about. Because when you look at like as far as his size at 6'4", 254, going out there and running a 4.58, 10.7 in the broad, his athleticism matches up with his size with somebody along the lines of Myles Garrett. And we've talked about him on if he came out last year, he probably would have been a first or second round guy then. To me, I think he solidified himself as
the number one
edge defender. You could make a strong argument for Dallas Turner, but I think Jared Verse is probably the guy that's going to be the first one off the board.
Laitu Latu from UCLA, 6'5", 259, also showed out 4.64 and 4.58. There is not that much of a difference between that on the field like speed. You know, like we keep talking about
the
track.
Dolphins are looking at, it seems like, in a lot of mock drafts.
I've been hearing that a lot because of us losing 2 or 3 defensive ends last year, and we're going to lose 1 or 2 of them in free agency. But we still do have 2 elite talents on the edge. I think tackle is the way that the Dolphins are likely going to go. We'll obviously see more after free agency if they end up picking up somebody because they just cleaned up a bunch of cap. Then, yeah, a guy like this would be a phenomenal early day weapon to be able to get on day one, just to increase that core rotation.
Yeah. So on the defensive tackle side, another, Florida State's putting out some prospects this year. I'll tell you
Talking
that.
about Michigan, but man,
like Florida State's they had a team last year. If
Trevor,
no, we're gonna go over this.
Travis Rudolph. If he didn't get hurt, bro,
that's not his name.
It's Travis.
It's not. Is it not Travis Rudolph?
Jordan.
Yes, Travis Jordan.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Yeah. See, that's how much I pay attention to Florida State.
Dude, they were
what we're doing over here. But no, Florida State had a squad. Anyways, moving on. Braden Fisk from Florida State, the defensive tackle, coming out and running a 4.78
at 292 pounds.
292
Guy's a freaking mountain.
That was scary to watch.
Bro was rolling, man.
Like that's what some of the receivers
very athletic too. Yes, dude.
That's insane. That's insane.
Well, that's where we talked about Estime, the running back from Notre Dame, ran a 4.7.
4.71. Like
this guy's right behind him, but you're 9'9"
he's got 70-pound difference.
Jump, 33.5 inch in the vertical. That's the same as what Braylon Allen gave you.
Yeah.
So you've got this guy going out there as a 6'4", 292-pound defensive tackle, doing the same kind of stuff that these running backs are putting out there athletically. That's freaking insane.
That's who y'all want to pick up.
He absolutely raised his stock a little bit. Byron Murphy from Texas, phenomenal.
Yes.
He was phenomenal combine.
He was already one of the top 2 talents to come out. So he really solidified himself, I think, as potentially number 1, no, hands down.
We haven't back to Braden Fisk. We haven't really seen a nose tackle like a white boy nose tackle that's got some grit like this.
Not in a long time.
I can't really think of one.
It's been a
JJ, is he off the edge?
He was edge, always edge.
JJ
still this would be a good JJ comp.
JJ was a 3-4 defensive end. If he played in a 4-3, he would have been a defensive tackle.
Gotcha.
But they're giving Byron Murphy an Ed Oliver comparison, which I love. I think that's right on point. 297, 6 foot. He's not really, really big, but he's going to plug up the middle. He's not getting moved around. Just elite size.
Leonard Taylor from Miami had a really good day as well. T'Vondre Sweat, he came in. His main thing that everybody was looking for at him was his measurables. Coming in at 6'4.5", 366 pounds. Now, the big thing with him was he didn't weigh in at the Senior Bowl, and that kind of shot up some flags from people as to, why not? How much heavier are you than what Texas had you listed at? But to his credit, Texas had him listed at 365. So him coming into the combine at 366, you get him down maybe a little bit to 345, 350 in the league. This dude, he's going to be a beast. I'm talking, this is your nose tackle. You just put in the middle and let him hold it down. I'm excited for T'Vondre Sweat in the league.
So Braden Fisk ran a faster 40 than Patrick Mahomes.
Braden Fisk ran a faster 40 than most like quarterbacks. Like him chasing you down from the interior is
It's not
going to
fun.
be scary. Like if he can get the pass rush skills down, dude's going to be an absolute animal.
Now, Jerzon Newton, 6'2", 304, little bit bigger. He didn't really do anything today, which I don't think that it hurt him too much. But the fact that Byron Murphy came out and looked the way he did, the fact that that T'Vondre Sweat came out and looked the way that he did,
one of those.
yes, he
Like,
might have
didn't
gotten
really
jumped.
hurt himself, but and I remember when we took him in our mock draft because he was the guy I was looking at too. Because I kind of questioned you taking him over Byron Murphy and things
Yep.
like that. To where I'm curious where he falls whenever we do our mock draft. You know, coming up this next week. Stay tuned for that. If you hit the notification button, you'll get an alert whenever that drops. Moving on to the
Now,
linebackers.
yes.
Peyton Wilson,
Big
linebacker from
balls.
NC State, bro. 4.43 in the 40, 6'4", 233, 34.5-inch on the vert, and 9'11 on the broad jump. Really liked what I saw out of him. He was one of those guys you kind of had like a little tab on to, you know, you kind of liked him going into this, and him posting those type of athleticism scores just, you know, kind of rang a few bells to where it's like, all right, maybe I need to start looking at this guy a little more than I was before. Ed,
Athletically, just showed up today. Like, completely jumped off the page whenever you were watching him. I think that the size, the speed, my only knock against him is where he went to college. Like, NC State is like it's a basketball school.
for me, though, for linebackers, like defensive guys, to me, that doesn't matter so much.
Yeah.
Because it's going out there and it's just see ball, get ball.
Yeah. He just wasn't pushed by a bunch of young dudes coming up trying to like force his way into the starting lineup. And I want to see that. And he looks like a dog. He definitely looks like he's going to have the grit and like all those things that Austin values so much in a player. I'm excited to see where he goes. I think he's definitely a day 2 guy. I didn't really see a linebacker that showed up and was like, oh, this guy needs to go in the first round. But I think that a lot of that had to do with the athleticism. 4.43 is phenomenal, but whenever you have Devin White at like 6'2", running 4.3 40s and stuff, like it's kind of different. He was the most athletic of the guys that I was able to see, though.
And Adrian Cooper,
no Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons coming out of this one.
Nah, not at all.
No, not out of these inside linebacker guys, but Adrian Cooper. I mean, 6'2", 230. He's on most people's boards listed as the number 1 inside linebacker out of Texas A&M. 4.51 in the 40, 34.5-inch in the vert, 9'10 on the broad. Like, showed the athleticism that you were wanting to kind of see to solidify himself as the number 1 interior linebacker in this class. And for me, going back to Miami, they've got these certain needs and stuff like that. So you're paying attention to these certain guys. And he's another one to where, like you said, I don't know if he's necessarily first round type of guy, but I'm not shocked to see him go early in the second.
Yeah. If Baltimore lets Patrick Queen go, which they're very likely to do, that could be a potential landing spot for him at the end of the first. They like the guys that they like. If they see this guy's athletically, he's got the size, he's kind of everything they're looking for at the position, he would really match up well with Roquan Smith as well. So I could see that, but I don't see a lot of teams anywhere in the draft that are going to prioritize linebacker over some of the athleticism we saw. I mean, we talked in our pre-meeting about how many sub-4 440s there were. There were 20 guys across all positions that were running a 4.3 something or below. And that's unreal. Like, I love that that's where the league is getting to, that these guys are ready day 1. Just
like watching superheroes out there.
Literally.
It really is. So moving on to the defensive back, starting with the corners, Quinyon Mitchell has pretty much solidified himself as my cornerback one. I mean, after talking about him after the Senior Bowl and then him just going out here in the combine, absolutely showing out with the second fastest 40 behind Nate Wiggins at a 4.33, 38 on the vert, 10.2 on the broad jump. He was one of the only corners, I believe only 8 of them did the bench press, and he was first, and he pumped out 20. So the fact that he went out and did the bench press to prove that strength that he has, which you're wanting as far as when it comes to pressing these receivers at the line, pressing these bigger body guys. I loved everything I saw out of Quinyon Mitchell. He looked phenomenal, and somebody that didn't hurt themselves really at all either was Terrion Arnold from Alabama.
So that's what I was actually about to ask. The 4.5 40 at 6 foot 189. We talked about it 3 or 4 times this episode. Track speed versus play speed. His play speed is elite. I don't know. He definitely didn't hurt himself too much, but I know he didn't help himself at all. I was a little bit disappointed with some of the measurables.
Quinyon was one of these here to where I feel like Quinyon jumped him. He didn't do anything to hurt himself, but he also didn't do anything to kind of move up with Quinyon and be like, wait, I'm still the number one guy here, which he very well could be, just depending on, pick your flavor type of thing going on with them. But like I said, for
Terrion coming out as a sophomore?
A redshirt sophomore. So, I mean, he's technically a junior.
That's pretty savage still, though.
He's young. So you've got plenty of time to develop.
Talking Alabama cornerbacks, Kool-Aid McKinstry didn't perform at all in any drill. We found out a couple days ago that he had some sort of injury, like a hamstring or something like that. That was
when he went through the medicals at the combine, they found something in his foot to where
it was his foot.
Yeah, I believe he's gonna try to rehab it and do some stuff at his pro day.
Yeah,
and then after his pro day, he's gonna get surgery.
I think that it's important for him to really show up for the pro day. Because some of these cornerbacks showed up so hard today. He was viewed on a lot of boards as the number one, and then Terrion was starting to creep above him. Quinyon was starting to creep above him, and they just took a huge jump above him. The other one was Cooper DeJean. He wasn't able to do anything either because of injury.
Yeah, he's nursing, but I do believe he expects to be able to do some stuff at his pro day. And he was there, went through the interviews, got his measurables, did all of that. But he was one of those you didn't really expect him to do anything out here. Looking through here, though, at the list, I mean, Enos Rakestraw, he's kind of one of those guys, fringe first, second round type of defensive backs. He's another one that 5'11", 183. You kind of wanted to see a lot more on the 40 than a 4.5.
He at least had a 10-foot broad.
That solidified himself to me, though, as more of a nickel type of guy, which we're seeing how predominant these nickel corners are becoming in the league.
Yeah.
And they're just making a niche for themselves, just, playing inside. So for me, that's fine if, he's going into the right type of scheme.
My favorite cornerback's got to be Kool-Aid.
He's got the best name. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Any pick six he has, he should try to run through the wall at the back.
There you go. There you go.
Wham.
Well,
we can't. Okay, you want to move on to safeties?
You got to talk about the safeties a little bit. I got to shout out my guy, Cam Kitchens. Now, he was one, though, left a lot to be desired in the athleticism department. Came out with a 4.65 40, 35 on the vert, 9.2 on the broad jump. But he looked very fluid in the on-field drills. So he's another one of those guys to where his play speed is much different than what he's getting whenever you're putting a score to it.
Hometown Miami, went to Miami. Seems like we know where he wants to go.
Oh, we know where he wants to go. Yeah, he wants to go to the Cowboys.
We need it.
He wants to go to the Cowboys.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But the number one guy was Tyler Nubin. He's another one. Didn't do anything as far as on-field drills at the combine. Did get measured then, though, at 6'1", 199, 32-inch arms, 9-inch hands. I'm excited to see what he puts out there at his pro day because dude is a absolute baller and deserves to be the number one safety in the class. But going through it all we've got the offensive lineman coming up tomorrow. You guys got any other dudes you want to shout out real quick?
Yeah, I got 3. We got to talk about them, the brother and the 2 sons, Rice, Gore, and McCaffrey.
Brendan Rice.
Put some praise on them names. Come on now. They got to move up the charts. I mean, these are dudes coming from legends.
So Brendan Rice, let's see what he put out there for everybody today. 6'2", 208, and ran a 4.5 in the 40. Not too bad for his size there. 36.5 inch on the vert, 9'11 on the broad. Kind of what you expected. I don't think he hurt himself. I also don't think he absolutely launched himself up anybody's boards. He was projected about 3rd or 4th round, so I think that's probably still what he's looking at there.
I see
Frank
the
Gore
Chiefs
Jr.
picking him
Let's
up
go ahead and
having
get him
a-
looked
Well,
up.
Frank
race-to-race
Gore,
action.
Frank Gore Jr. did not run the 40, and it's a little bit of a red flag. I'd heard that he might do it on his pro day, but I really wanted to see.
He did the on-field drills.
Yes.
But yeah, he didn't do like the 40, the 3-cone, the broad, any of that. He's going to do that at his pro day. But the on-field drills, he looked very fluid. He looked great. He looked good as far as the drills going over the bags, making his cuts. He looked really fluid in that. He looked great as far as receiving it on the wheel routes and the swing routes that they were
Yes.
giving him. So he, like you said, shout out to him. And who was the other guy that you mentioned? The other son?
Luke
McCaffrey.
brother.
Luke. He ran a faster 40 than Christian did. You
Hey.
know they're going to talk about that at Thanksgiving
Hey,
because I
I mean,
absolutely would too. But like,
Younger
listen here,
brother.
slow stuff.
So,
Let's
I mean,
see.
he's
Luke
got, he's
ran,
gotta
I
have the
believe he ran a
tangibles.
4.47, 4.46, 10.1 on the broad jump, and 36-inch on the vert, 1.52 on his 10-yard, 6.7 on the 3-cone, 4.02 on the 20-yard shuttle. Athlete, 6'2", 198. I think, but he's also one of those two to where I don't know how much he really helped his stock as far as how much he's going to move up. He's kind of in the same area to me, a little bit under Brendan Rice, to where anywhere between the 3rd and the 5th round, I could see him going. It's just, wouldn't be shocked to see San Francisco pull the trigger on him and just bring him in there with his brother, because why not? Especially if they lose Brandon Ayuk in the offseason, they're going to have a need.
It's just kind of some of those type of people, like once they get on a team, they're going to feed 'em
Oh, I'm
just
fully
to
prepared
build
for the
their
49ers
name
to
up again.
draft Brendan Rice,
Yep.
Frank Gore Jr., and Luke McCaffrey.
Oh, that would be insane.
Because Luke gets to play with
That
his
would be
brother.
nuts.
Frank Gore Sr. played in San Francisco forever,
and
and we
he's the
obviously
advisor
know
of
where
them.
Jerry Rice was forever. So, you just bring all those guys home, and you're just hanging out.
That's great. And they need pieces to continue on with their legacy and try to win a Super Bowl against these Chiefs.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a long one for you boys. Thanks for watching to the end. Make sure you guys go to Tulsi Rose Tea at tulsirosetea.com. Like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you guys on the next one on Tuesday. Peace.
Catch you on the flippity flip. Pop, pop.
Doses.
Running that outro music. Running it. We're running that outro music. Running